1 down, 13 to go, and what a wild ass ride week 1 was. You already know who it is. My name is Mike Kyle, aka the Fantasy Vulture. I have over a decade worth of fantasy football experience and have continuously competed for fantasy championships over the course of the past 7 seasons. Let's make it 8 in 2021. And that's right, we had booms, we had busts, we had flat out disappearing acts by several players, and we're going to break them all down in this episode. So be sure to hit that subscribe button down below so you never miss a week recap or preview from me, as well as all the other content here on the channel. Hit that like button down below if you got that W, and also hit that like button down below if you got that win as well. Anyways, we're going to dive right into our week 1 recap, just breaking down all the action, and we're really just going to be focusing on my takeaways from this week. Let me know in the comment section down below who boomed on your team and who busted. We'll get through all of that in this video. And one of the things that I learned actually from the preview for the week is I think we nailed the format during the preview, so we're going to bring that thing back during, well, there we go. We're going to bring that thing back during the recaps. And what I mean is this, like just having everything that you need to know on screen like this for both teams. We flew through 15 games in about 30 minutes for week 1, and hopefully we can do the same here during the takeaways episode. So let's just dive right in. We're going to go to the Jacksonville Jaguars taking on the Houston Texans, and the Texans just came out and throat stomped all over the Jags. My key takeaways from Jacksonville is that you got what you expected, I think, from this team in terms of what the expectation was for Trevor Lawrence. I was somebody who was very much on the record saying that Trevor Lawrence, I don't think is going to immediately make this crazy impact that I think a few other people were projecting him to have. He does have some weapons around him, but I just think it's going to take him a bit of time to get used to and accustomed to the NFL. So here's what we had happen during the Jags. We had Marvin Jones get in the end zone. DJ Chark got in the end zone as well. Marvin Jones led the team in targets, but I really just want to talk about James Robinson and what happened with him, because oh my, as somebody who started James Robinson, again, this game got really out of hand for Jacksonville really early, and they were playing catch up. But for James Robinson to only have 5 carries, for Carlos Hyde to have 9, I just have so many different questions here. Does Urban Meyer hate James Robinson? What on earth is this backfield? Is there an Ohio State loyalty to Carlos Hyde? What would have happened had Travis Etienne actually stayed healthy? I don't know. Part of me wants to panic on James Robinson. The other half doesn't, because again, this game was just so busted open early on by Houston that I think that is the product of, or I guess that led to the result of James Robinson's final stat line. And all things considered, I just want to get I'm going to try not to panic. To me, I think Robinson next week just becomes a bit of a hesitation play. And if you have a better option at the running back position, I think you actually go for it, just because I want to see this backfield shake out one more week, and then we can actually move forward from there. Marvin Jones, again, 5 for 77, gets in the end zone. DJ Chark actually had 12 targets. I lied. Chark had 12 targets, 3 receptions, 86 yards, and a touchdown. And in fact, he almost had another touchdown as well. Laviska Shenault played all right, 9 targets. So Trevor Lawrence really was distributing the ball, which is going to be good to see. But the thing that may hold the Jacksonville Jaguars back in terms of fantasy output is going to be the fact that Trevor Lawrence spreads the ball around, very similar to a Big Ben, a Jimmy G, where you're not going to have these wide receivers that just command a ton of targets. And again, even with Trevor Lawrence, who had 51 pass attempts in this game, largely because of the game script, that probably is not going to be the norm going forward. On the other side, going over to the Houston Texans here, I tried to tell you, Brandon Cooks forever. He needs to be in your lineup every single week. 5 receptions, 132 receiving yards, just dominated a few big plays down there as well. Tyrod Taylor balled out, 21 of 33 for 291 passing yards and 2 touchdowns. And in the game where I said I did not want to start a single Houston Texans running back, they equally proved me right and equally proved me wrong. Mark Ingram David Johnson, and Phillip Lindsay all got in the end zone. But what more of a jaw-dropping stat did we get than Mark Ingram with 26 rush attempts? Mark Ingram is, let's pull this up, is 31. I wanted to make sure I had that right. The 31-year-old running back, Mark Ingram, had 26 rush attempts in this game. And to that I say, what? What is this backfield? Ingram had 26 rush attempts. David Johnson had 3. Phillip Lindsay had 8. And none of them were productive on the ground. But by all 3 of them getting into the end zone, it all saved their day. So if you started one of them, congrats, I think. I don't know what to do with this Texans backfield. Judging off of this, it's very clearly Mark Ingram as the lead dog. So we'll talk about him during the waiver wire pickup show tomorrow. But oh my God, I just don't know what to make of the Texans backfield, as if I wasn't already confused by that enough going in. Let's go over to the next game now. And it's going to be the New York Jets, who took on the Carolina Panthers in Carolina. Carolina and Sam Darnold come out with a revenge game victory against New York. And I really just want to talk about 1 or 2 players from the Jets. And I watched this was one of the games where I watched snap for snap. And the reason for that, 1, I'm a Carolina Panthers fan. 2, I wanted to see Sam Darnold. 3, I wanted to see Zach Wilson and really just kind of figure out what these offenses could look like. So Corey Davis, who I said was a smash play in this game, bang, got one there. 5 receptions, 97 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Zach Wilson looked horrific in the first half. The entire Jets team looked pretty bad all the way around in that first half, and they kind of got things rolling. But I really want to talk about the running backs here, who combined for 17 attempts and only 45 yards. Ty Johnson, Michael Carter, and Tevin Coleman. As of right now, I don't think you can start any of them until we actually see something formulating in this offense. Elijah Moore only had 1 reception for -3 yards. I think he had 4 targets or so in this game. If I'm not mistaken, he actually had 4 targets in this game. And when I was watching that, he just had a few really bad drops. I think he had 1 downfield that he should have caught. He also had a few just screen plays that just bobbled in and out of his hand. So not a great debut for Elijah Moore. Hopefully there will be more on the way, no pun intended. And things will get better and he will bounce back. But as of right now, Elijah Moore is going to be out of my lineup. And the only player on the Jets who I'm actually willing to start week in and week out is going to be Corey Davis, who, again, just really cemented himself as this team's #1 wide receiver and Zach Wilson's favorite target in this offense. On the other side, going to the Carolina Panthers, Sam Darnold, all things considered, I thought played really well. You can definitely tell he was just trying to get used to the offense, and that was just the thing I was trying to figure out. Christian McCaffrey is going to be his best friend, which kind of is to be expected, but that was the thing that really jumped out to me when I was watching the Carolina Panthers on offense. It just felt like every single time that a play broke down or Darnold didn't have an option down the field, it was check down, check down, check down, and you see that in Christian McCaffrey's final stat line, who had 21 rush attempts for 98 yards and also had 9 receptions, for 89 yards as well. Didn't get in the end zone and still finishes as the #1 running back on the week because he is just that damn good. For the receiving options here in Carolina, it kind of went maybe as I expected. I would have loved to see more from Robbie Anderson, who only caught 1 pass, and that 1 pass was a 57-yard bomb, DJ Moore, 6 receptions for 80 yards. And I want to take a moment to talk about Terrace Marshall, who on the surface may look like that he had a bad game. And admittedly, he kind of did. I think he had 2 drops in this game, and that wasn't great to see. But he was really involved, and you just saw Darnold kind of go to him over and over. 6 targets, only holding 3 for 26 yards. Marshall, for me, could have had a much better game than the stat line showed. And so that's one of the things that I'm really looking at going forward, is just how much more involved is Marshall going to get as he progresses and develops throughout the course of the season. Robbie Anderson only having 3 targets, definitely concerning. I'm not going to panic on it just yet. I want to see how that kind of plays out and how it shakes out over the course of the next coming weeks. I'm not off Robbie Anderson by any means, but that is just something to keep an eye on going forward. Now if we move on to our next game here, this was an interesting one as well. The Chargers, who took on Washington, and unfortunately the Washington football team suffered just a terrible injury. Ryan Fitzpatrick hurt his hip. It's a very similar injury that Tua had back at Alabama, so he's going to be placed on injury reserve and he's going to miss an extensive period of time. So bring in Taylor Heineke for the Washington for the Washington football team, and how does this impact Washington going forward? Well, we're going to have to downgrade some expectations for Terry McLaurin. I've actually already gotten a few messages about McLaurin, like what do you do with him? For me, I'm still going to hold him. The talent's going to win out there. Heineke has shown the ability to kind of keep things steady, all things considered. So I'm fine with McLaurin. You're just going to have to limit your expectations from him throughout the rest of the season. Logan Thomas gets in the end zone there, three receptions, 30 yards, and a score. Antonio Gibson, who did not have a great game, had 20 carries, 90 yards as well, and led the team in targets. So it is Gibson season, and that's something that we've been really hoping to see, even dating back to last year, where it was like Antonio Gibson is too good to be splitting the workload with J.D. McKissic, and it looks like we are finally unleashing Antonio Gibson this year. Also, side note, by the way, now that we're 3 games in, stars and stops. I don't like the names, but I was just like, studs and duds is taken by the footballers. We already know boom bust. So if you have any suggestions for what I could name this segment, by all means, go ahead and drop those down below in the comment section. It would be greatly appreciated. I'm open to anything. Whatever you guys got, I'll take into consideration. And then going over to the Charger side of things, Justin Herbert was fine, but not really, admittedly. He should probably be in the stops category. Austin Eckler gets in the end zone. There was a lot of concern of Eckler going into the week, especially with that hamstring injury. He comes away with 15 carries, 57 yards, and a score. Unfortunately, I think he only had 1 target, if I'm not mistaken. So that's going to be just something to keep an eye on. I'm not too concerned about that, all things considered, just because we know the pass catching ability that Austin Eckler had. And maybe the thing that is making me eat my own words the most this week is the performance that we got from one Mike Williams, who I was adamant about not playing this week. And what does Mike Williams go ahead and do? 8 receptions, 12 targets, 82 yards, and a score. Justin Herbert could not stop throwing him the football, and I was ready to pull my hair out. I could not believe it. I simply could not believe what I was watching, because I was even answering a few questions on Twitter before the game started, and they were start-sit questions regarding Mike Williams, and I legitimately said, Mike Williams busted in 75% of his games last year. There is no way in hell I'm rolling him out during week 1. And then he goes ahead and does that. Thanks for playing, Mike. Appreciate you on that one. Keenan Allen doing Keenan Allen things, 9 receptions, 100 yards on the dot, a great game from him. To me, this was just a game where the Chargers offense, if you really just watch this game, they really just didn't get things going. They were able to piece drives together, but it wasn't the fire on all cylinders that we saw from this team last season. Now, going back over to Washington real quick, we'll wrap up with this. Antonio Gibson, just going to be an auto start every single week. Terry McLaurin, limit your expectations. Well, as far as Logan Thomas goes, I'm not overly excited to start him, but he is going to be a viable tight end throughout the course of the season. But again, just for all these guys now, maybe you lower them about a half step with Taylor Heineke coming in, and in fact, maybe you actually increase Antonio Gibson by a half step because of the fact that they're going to have a backup quarterback. They're going to rely a lot on Antonio Gibson during all of this. In the absence of Ryan Fitzpatrick, and so there's a world here where Antonio Gibson actually levels up as a result of the Fitzpatrick injury and is not taking a half step down. Our next game, which was a crazy one, is the Seahawks and the Colts. And injuries that took place in this game, Rashad Penny suffered a calf injury, which is fine. You probably weren't rostering Rashad Penny anyway. If you were, drop him. And Russell Wilson was cooking. Which, again, right, unsurprisingly, we know Russ can do it. It's just a matter of how often can he do it. So Russell Wilson, 18 completions, 254 yards and 4 touchdowns. Metcalf, 4 for 61 and 1. Lockett, 100 receiving yards and 2 scores, including 2 beautiful bombs caught by him. And Gerald Everett gets in the end zone as well. That's a great name to keep an eye on. If you're struggling for a tight end, look to pick up Gerald Everett. It's very underrated how much Russell Wilson loves throwing the tight end, especially in the red zone. He is a great tight end to go after on the waiver wire this week. On the other side, to the Indianapolis Colts. Woo! This one hurts. This one hurts. Michael Pittman, the milk carton was out. Just nowhere to be found. only 4 targets, 3 receptions for 29 yards, and then a complete disappearing act for somebody who I expected to have a potential breakout season. Not off to a hot start in week 1. Zach Pascal, hang on, that's actually 2 touchdowns by Zach Pascal, not 1. So let me fix that real quick. So Pascal gets in the end zone twice, 4 receptions for 43 yards and 2 scores. Jonathan Taylor doing Jonathan Taylor things. 17 carries, 56 receptions, 56 yards, 6 receptions for 60 yards. He was just a really well-rounded back throughout the course of this game. And Carson Wentz played all right, kind of, right? Like, it wasn't like a great game by Wentz by any means. But he was suitable for you, I guess. Put about 17 points or so in your league. Not a whole lot to talk about in terms of Carson Wentz, I felt like, for this game. If we go to the next one here, another fun one. This game that went in overtime. The Bengals beat the Vikings in OT as time expires. Kirk Cousins, 49 attempts, 36 completions, 351 yards, and 2 scores. Dalvin Cook gets in the end zone, just doing typical Dalvin Cook things. Adam Thielen gets in the end zone twice, 9 receptions for 92 yards and 2 scores. Justin Jefferson, unfortunately, didn't bust for you, put up about 10 points for you in half-point PPR formats. But the player that I want to talk about actually is KJ Osborne, who is the team's number 3 wide receiver, who saw 9 targets, 7 receptions, and 78 yards. He's not listed as a stars or stops, but just a name to keep an eye on because this team shifted to start to run 3 wide receivers instead of their typical 2 wide receiver sets that we saw throughout the past couple of seasons. With the loss of Zach Ertz, not really having somebody to fill the role, or not Zach Ertz, Irv Smith, excuse me, not having somebody to fill the role there at the tight end position, this team might just start running 3 wide receiver sets all the time. And if that is the case, KJ Osborne is just a name to keep an eye on, especially in deeper wide receiver leagues. If you start 3 or multiple flex spots and you need a bench piece for you. Let's see here. Wait, why do I have Kirk Cousins here twice? Oh, I did not adjust that. That's my bad. Whoops. Apologies for that. All right. Going over to the Bengals now. Joe Mixon. I just have so many questions. And by so many questions, I mean, holy hell. 29 carries, 127 rushing yards, gets in the end zone, also gets 4 receptions for 23 yards. And this is what we thought Joe Mixon could be this year. There is nobody behind him. And with this offense expected to take a step forward, that only means that Joe Mixon is going to get more and more involved, have the opportunities to really just dominate in every facet of the game. And if you got Joe Mixon, especially where he was sliding in some drafts, what a steal you already have. T. Higgins gets in the end zone, 4 for 58 and 1. And then also Jamar Chase, who, there's a reason why Jamar Chase was the first wide receiver taken in this draft, and there was obviously a ton of camp. What's the opposite of hype? Camp poo? I don't know. But Jamar Chase, 5 receptions, 101 receiving yards, and a score. But with the emergence of a Joe Mixon out of the backfield, T. Higgins cementing his role in this offense, the emergence of Jamar Chase, somebody had to take a hit, and it looks like, as of right now, it was just Tyler Boyd who only had 3 receptions for 32 yards. Next game here, let's go to the Cardinals and the Titans, and which was maybe the most surprising game of the week. This is the game that I thought for sure, I mentioned, was one of my favorites going into the week. I just thought that we had possible shootout city here, and we had a shootout, but only by one team, and that was the Arizona Cardinals, who just poured it on the Tennessee Titans early and often. Kyler Murray, 4 touchdowns, 289 yards, also actually 5 touchdowns, 4 passing touchdowns, 1 rushing, 5 rush attempts for 20 yards. Just Kyler, like, oh my God. My guy, it's only week 1. Like, save some for the rest of the weeks. You know what I'm talking about? Hopkins, DeAndre gets in the end zone twice, 6 for 83 and 2. Christian Kirk also gets in the end zone twice, which is so fucking annoying because now what do we do with Christian Kirk? Like, we were all the way off Christian Kirk literally just 2 weeks ago, right? And now we're in this position where I don't fucking know what to do with Christian Kirk because A.J. Green had 2 receptions for 25 yards and Rondale Moore had 4 for 68, which makes me beg the question, who the hell is the number 2 on the Arizona Cardinals? I'm honestly not sure. But I want to talk about the rushing attack for this team real quick, because Chase Edmonds was all right. He had 12 carries for 63 yards, also caught 4 passes for 43 yards. But James Conner had 4 more rush attempts, and unfortunately only had 53 yards on his 16 carries. So of the two that I want to own, Chase Edmonds is the guy. But if James Conner gets in the end zone, we're probably talking about this very differently. And so I think we're just at this point where I want to start Edmonds over Conner. But if you need to start Conner, I think there's a justification for it, because you saw the amount of work that he got in this game. And maybe that was a byproduct of the fact that this was a 25-point blowout. But I think it's something to keep an eye on going forward. And then as far as the Titans go, this team just got the doors beaten off of them. Tannehill sucked. Derrick Henry sucked. Julio Jones sucked. A.J. Brown got in the end zone, which honestly just saved his day. And for me, I'm not going to panic on this. Like, this is not a situation where I feel like, oh boy, like, well, we're all going to be off the Titans, because you're probably still going to start these guys week in, week out. Maybe Julio's like the only one where you feel kind of questionable about, because you probably have other wide receivers. But Derrick Henry's never going to leave your lineup. You're going to keep starting Tannehill. Obviously, A.J. Brown is also never going to leave your lineup as well. I'm not ready to be off the Titans by any means. I just consider this to be the biggest Week 1 fluke of all of Week 1, honestly, of all the teams. Let's shift to the next game now, and that's going to be the 49ers taking on the Detroit Lions. And we got one of the weirdest things that I can recall. Trey Sermon before the game was just a healthy scratch. Just out of nowhere, 12:30 rolls around, and all of a sudden, the alert starts going off from Sleeper and Twitter and Fantasy Life, and it's Trey Sermon inactive. And I just remember texting everybody like, what the fuck just happened? So, Trey Sermon out. And then in the first quarter, Raheem Mostert hurts his knee, and he's going to be out multiple weeks with, it looked like, I think they used the word chipped cartilage, which doesn't sound like a good thing. So Raheem Mostert's going to miss some extended time, and we'll talk about Elijah Mitchell right now, who came in without Trey Sermon, without Raheem Mostert, and Mitchell comes out with 19 carries, 100 yards on the ground, and a touchdown. And Mitchell was a guy who was kind of like was whispered about throughout the offseason on this team. It was kind of like if you know type thing. And now he's going to get the opportunity, I think, to shine in the absence of Raheem Mostert. We'll see what happens with Trey Sermon this week. But I just don't know how Trey Sermon goes from a healthy scratch week 1 to all of a sudden the starter. And we know what Shanahan does with these running backs, and he just shuffles them in and out. So Elijah Mitchell is obviously going to be one of the biggest. Whoops, sorry about that. So Elijah Mitchell, to me, is going to be one of the biggest waiver wire adds of the week. Probably the number 1 guy, just knowing what this offense does and how they utilize the running back position. Deebo Samuel, I mean, what more can you say? 9 receptions, 12 targets, 189 yards, 1 touchdown, and a fumble. The fumble, we'll forgive you for, Deebo. You balled out. Brandon Ayuk was like maybe... I think I was more frustrated with the Brandon Ayuk stuff than I was the Trey Sermon and the Zach Moss inactives. Because Ayuk didn't see the field at all in the first quarter, then slowly made his way in, but didn't see a target, if I'm not mistaken. Was Ayuk just straight zeros across the board? Yep. Brandon Ayuk, straight zeros across the board, didn't register a target at all, and was literally just out there doing cardio in the plays that he was in. So that was frustrating. You burned a roster spot there, unfortunately, and it's like, was he hurt? Like the rumblings of the hamstring injury, obviously, we heard about as we got later in the training camp. Apparently, he wasn't a professional enough down the stretch. I don't know what's going on with Brandon Ayuk. We'll see what we do with him in week 2, but as of right now, like, I think we need to actually see him on the field and be productive before we can start putting him back in our starting lineups. But just what a weird case of week 1 for the San Francisco 49ers, who absolutely dominated the Lions. And then you look at the score, and all of a sudden it's 41 to 33. And why? Because for whatever reason, this team just allowed Detroit to come back. And boy, did Detroit come back. They were down by 25 points at one point in this game, and Jared Goff kind of went crazy. 57 attempts, 38 completions, 338 yards, 3 touchdowns, and 1 interception. Both of the running backs for Detroit played extremely well. DeAndre Swift, 11 carries for 39 yards, also racked in 8 receptions for 65 yards and a score. Jamal Williams, 9 for 54 and 1, also had 8 receptions for 56 yards. And then TJ Hawkinson, and this is what we all expected for Hawk this season. 8 receptions, 97 yards, a touchdown, and a 2-point conversion. He is going to be the centerpiece in this offense alongside the running backs here. And you're going to have this lovely little triangle between those players. You'll have Hawkinson up top and then the 2 running backs on the side, Jamal Williams and DeAndre Swift. And I got to be honest, I'm very disappointed in Dan Campbell, who I got rattled. I'll say it. I got rattled here. When it came out before the game that like DeAndre Swift might see third down work and XYZ and DeAndre Swift isn't going to be the starter, I hate to admit it, I pulled DeAndre Swift from my lineups at 12:58. Like for the first 30 minutes of that report, I was like, we're good, we're going to start Swift. And then I thought about it more and more, and the week 1 nerves really got into my head. And at that point, because I really did expect this game to go the way that it went for the first 3 quarters, where San Francisco was just going to crush, that DeAndre Swift would not be involved or would be game scripted out, and that just simply was not the case. So that was a bad beat on my end. I paid the price for it because I lost one of my leagues because of that action. Tough pill to swallow for week 1, but we will bounce back going forward. Next thing I want to talk about was the defensive grudge match and the offensive ugliness that was the Pittsburgh Steelers and the Buffalo Bills. This was a game that I thoroughly predicted this would happen. Pittsburgh gets the win over Buffalo by a final score of 23-16. Big Ben was atrocious. Najee Harris, 16 carries for 45 yards. The wide receivers were fine, but like nobody stood out by any means. Let's pull this up, actually. Give me 1 second. Where's my, there we go. Yeah. Deontay Johnson was the only one that got into double figures, but even then it was just by a hair. Gets in the end zone. That's the only thing that saved his day. I want to talk about Najee Harris, though, for a second, though. Does not do much with the opportunities he was given. But the Steelers played 58 offensive snaps, and Najee Harris played 58 offensive snaps. I'm not worried at all. This is the exact reason why I drafted Najee Harris anywhere I could get, because he is the guy for this Pittsburgh Steelers offense, and that is going to lead to a lot of fantasy points, even if it wasn't in this game. If I were you and the Najee Harris owner is panicking, I would trade for him on the spot. On the other side, going to the Buffalo Bills, Josh Allen was horrendous. Zach Moss, a healthy scratch before the game. Devin Singletary didn't do anything either, because Devin Singletary is not a good running back in the NFL. And this was just an ugly game for both sides on offense all the way around. Things should get better. I'm not too worried about it going forward for either team. Next, I want to talk about the Philadelphia Eagles, who thrashed the Atlanta Falcons 32-6. And what a great game for me personally. I have not shut up about Jalen Hurts all offseason long. And what does Jalen Hurts do in week 1? He balls out. He balls out. Why? Because Jalen Hurts is a good quarterback. 27 for 35, 264 yards, 3 touchdowns, 62 rushing yards. And this is just going to be the Jalen Hurts experience all year long. Yes, of course it's Atlanta, who's probably like the worst team in the league. I don't care. I'm going to take this victory lap if you don't mind me doing so, because this is what I've waited all offseason for Jalen Hurts to come in and be this force that can carry the Philadelphia Eagles. Miles Sanders had a pretty solid game all the way around. 15 carries, 74 yards, 4 receptions for 39 yards. Devonta Smith, the rookie out of Alabama, 6 for 71 and 1. Jalen Reagor, 6 for 49 and 1. Dallas Goedert gets in the end zone as well. What a great game and a great showing for Nick Sirianni and the Philadelphia Eagles in this matchup. I don't care if it was just the Falcons. For this team to come out and dominate the way that they did, I have such high hopes for this offense going forward, and I hope that they come to fruition because there is so much potential on this team for fantasy implications. On the other side, though, I would say this is the most disappointing that I was in a team, the most disappointed, I was in a team for this week. Matt Ryan was atrocious. Mike Davis couldn't get anything going. Calvin Ridley was atrocious. Kyle Pitts, meh. And then the worst one for me, Russell Gage, goose egg. Just 2 targets. We'll see. We'll see. I'm not going to cut bait with Russell Gage yet. I'm not going to cut bait with the Atlanta Falcons offense by any means. But I'm concerned. Like, there is cause for concern and hesitation moving forward into week 2. We'll break it all down entering next weekend, but just something to keep an eye on for this team in week 2. Like, I'm probably watching the Falcons the most next week, and I believe they're actually in Tampa for week 2, so they're going to need to hang points on the Bucks if they even want to have a shot at winning that game. And the Bucks defense we know is great, so there is cause for concern there. Let's go to the Browns and the Chiefs, which was a really fun game to watch. Takeaways here. Honestly, not a whole lot. Like, this game was pretty cut and dry. Nick Chubb going to do Nick Chubb things. Kareem Hunt, the same story. Jarvis Landry, of course, the most overvalued, or not overvalued, the most undervalued, overachieving wide receiver every single year. I bang the drum for Landry year over year. He always outperforms his ADP. No Odell in this game, still trying to come back from that torn ACL. Patrick Mahomes is God. Tyreek Hill is God. Travis Kelce is God. Clyde Edwards-Helaire didn't have the best of games, unfortunately. Was disappointing to see, and I'm just trying to figure out where I'm at with Clyde. I'm not off of him yet. I really don't think I ever will be, to be honest. Like, just there's so much opportunity for him on this Chiefs team. I'm never going to ditch him. He's a great running back 2 or a great running back 3 if you have that luxury. But I do want to do another victory lap here around Mecole Hardman because for whatever reason, you guys tried to talk yourself into him, and I was over here banging the drum that no, there is no reason to try and do that. There's no reason to try and do that for you this year. Only 3 targets, 19 yards. Bleh. No thanks. What else do we have to talk about? How many more games do we got here? Oh, we got a few to talk about. All right, let's go to the Packers and the Saints. Speaking of throwing up everywhere, that's what the Packers did. Do I have cause for concern? No. Why? Because a team with Aaron Rodgers, Aaron Jones, Devontae Adams, Robert Tonyan, and A.J. Dillon, there's no reason to panic. Like, I refuse to do it. They face Detroit next week. We're going to start all of them again, and we will have a much better result than we did in week 1. But somebody who balled the fuck out this week was Jameis Winston. And I get to say that I started Jameis in a league, and it paid off. Jameis Winston, 14 completions. It might as well have been 4. 14 completions, 148 yards, 5 touchdowns. This team turned to Alvin Kamara as well and unleashed him in a full workhorse load. 20 carries, 83 yards on the ground, 3 receptions, and a touchdown. Juwan Johnson, 2 touchdowns. Deontay Harris got in the end zone as well. Adam Troutman didn't see a whole lot of work there. I don't know what to make. I think like that's what thing where I'm at right now with Marquez Callaway, who just was shadowed by Jair Alexander. Not a great game there. But Adam Troutman as well did not play particularly well. What do you do with those 2 guys going forward? I'm probably not going to play Callaway and probably drop Troutman, I guess. Like, I think like that the thing about this game was New Orleans was just so efficient. Again, like 5 touchdowns on 14 completions. Okay, Jameis, cool. But like, how are you able to actually gauge what just happened in this game? I don't know. Like, it was so wild and just so jaw-dropping to see. I don't know how to evaluate it going forward with the Saints. So I think we're going to take the wait-and-see approach with this offense one more week and then go from there. Let's see here. We got some bad news to report. And that's the Broncos beat the Giants, but that's not the bad news. Jerry Jeudy, who was working the Giants in every aspect of this game. I believe Jerry Jeudy had 7 receptions at this point for 72 yards, if I'm not mistaken. Let me vet that. Yep, it was 6 for 72, 7 targets. Suffered what appeared to be like a gruesome ankle injury. Thank God it's only just a high ankle sprain, but he's going to miss several weeks. Hopefully, have an IR spot. They said 4 to 6. I think it's going to be closer to 6 to 8. And high ankle sprains always take longer to recover from. And we normally don't see wide receivers, or really any player, let alone wide receivers, bounce back from them fully during the same year where the injury was, I'm going to use the word acquire, obtained. I don't know what you call it. The injury has occurred. So that is a bummer. Cortland Sutton did not do much. Javonte Williams did not do much either. Melvin Gordon, 11 rush attempts for 101 yards and a touchdown. I mean, the big 75-yard touchdown run is going to definitely inflate his numbers there. Teddy Bridgewater was everything that I thought he would be for the Denver Broncos, and that was somebody that really just spread the ball around, got guys involved, and was able to punch it into the end zone. I believe it was twice. So I'm cool with Bridgewater there. He's really just going to be this stabilizing force for the Denver Broncos. Tim Patrick, who we need to talk about now with Jerry Jeudy's ankle injury, probably one of my favorite waiver wire pickups for the week. He's somebody that we're going to be talking a lot about in the coming days. On the other side for the Giants, Saquon, I don't think I ever have it in me to bench Saquon Barkley. And unfortunately, that's going to be a position that a lot of you are going to be in, who just had 10 carries for 26 yards. Kenny Golladay, 4 receptions for 64 yards, didn't play well. Sterling Shepard, 7 for 113 and 1. But I just hate this Giants offense with a burning passion. I don't think that there's any offense that I'm less interested in than the Giants. Maybe the Jets, to be honest, but just stay away from New York if you can. It's going to be rough sledding for all of them going forward throughout the course of the season. And then going over to the last Sunday afternoon game, the Dolphins and the Patriots. Jalen Waddle. Whoops, there should be a Y there, shouldn't there be? This is what happens when you rush the PowerPoint, Mike. Anyways, Jalen Waddle, the other rookie that gets in the end zone, 4 for 61 and 1. Mike Gesicki, a goose egg. This was just a weird game. Offenses couldn't really get it rolling. Was a defensive battle at times, but with this Dolphins offense, I'm just not sure what you can ever expect from them on a week-to-week basis. So that's going to be a team that we also keep an eye on going forward through weeks 2 and 3. On the other side for the Patriots, Nelson Aguilar gets in the touchdown, 5 for 72 and 1. And this is what I want to draw attention to right now, is those two tight ends, Hunter Henry and Jonnu Smith. Where Henry, 3 for 31, Jonnu Smith, 5 for 42. And guess what? If you combine them, that would be 8 for 73, and that's a great game. But guess what? They are split. You cannot play Hunter Henry or Jonnu Smith on a week-to-week basis. Just don't do it. You're going to want to pull your hair out. If they could just merge into one tight end, different story. But unfortunately, they're two, and they're just going to eat into each other's value for the rest of the year, and that is going to be so frustrating. Do not put yourself in that position. I would drop them both immediately. And then let's move over to the Sunday night game, where David Montgomery just carved up the Rams defense. 16 for 108 and 1 was the only bright spot of the Bears offense here. And then what more can you say for Matt Stafford's debut as a member of the Los Angeles Rams? 20 for 26, 321 yards and 3 touchdowns. Darrell Henderson gets in the end zone, 16 for 70 and 1. Van Jefferson, my baby boy who I've been waiting to have a breakout in the NFL, 2 for 80 and 1. Cooper Kupp was incredible, 7 for 108 and 1. And this is just, I think, what you expect from the Rams now. This is what this offense always could have been. They were just missing a quarterback. And now they have one. And this team is going to hang 30-plus points on any given opponent week in and week out. I'm so excited for this offense. I think they're going to be so much fun to watch. And they're just somebody where we can say week in and week out, start everybody. Robert Wood still put together the nice game. Tyler Higbee played all right, but he definitely showed some flashes and a connection with Matt Stafford as well. This is probably my favorite offense, to be honest. If I had to go through every single offense in the league, the Rams are probably near the top of my list. So I'm really excited about them going forward this season. And honestly, I think that's it. I think that's going to cover it. Right now, we have the Ravens and the Raiders playing Monday night right now, just to give you guys a score update in real time so I can watch it for myself. Baltimore is up 17-10. When I was watching earlier, just Darren Waller is just getting target after target. Ruggs left the game with it looks like a calf injury. Tyson Williams is currently balling out, and it's just this is going to be a fun game. And honestly, that's it. So that's my score update right now. There is 3 minutes left in the third as I'm recording this video. So you guys know the result of this game, and I'm sure I'll talk about it. During the waiver wire pickup if there's anything of note or takeaways from the matchup. But I think that's going to do it as we get up out of here. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed, hit that like button, subscribe down below so you never miss a video from me. We're going to be doing this thing every single week, so stick around. It's going to be a fun time as I help you navigate the fantasy football landscape week in and week out. Remember, people come and go, but fantasy championships are forever, and I will see you in the next video.